And we are live. Hi, everybody. We are trying to get things going. I've got a YouTube page here that tells me that I am live, but I am standing by. That doesn't make any sense to me. Isn't it one or the other whenever you do something like that? You're either live or you're not live. I think maybe I paused it, though. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. You're watching the Network Plus Study Group pre-show. So thanks for joining us today. I've got to pop out this chat. Oh, I think I've got it popped out. So we can move this back over. Maybe I'll change this. Get rid of that screen. Bye-bye. Let's adjust things on this side. Pop out the chat. There's the participants. We'll bring this over. So far, so good. Hi, everybody. Hey, chat room. Thanks for joining us. We'll be doing Network Plus today. Folks already checking in from DC. Welcome, Paul. I think you were here last week, weren't you? Let's put some things in the chat room. In a few minutes. And we'll put a link there. I think we're in good shape. Let's have a look at what's going on here. So we've got our live stream going. We've got recordings going here, recordings going here, recordings going online. So recordings are up. I've already done the podcast intro. Hello, Richmond, Virginia. Thanks for being here. I've done the lights are on. I haven't really done a camera check quite yet. Cameras are up and running, though. That looks okay. That looks all right. Do we have anything here? Yes, we do. So it's all looking pretty good. Hello, Vegas. Hello, Georgia. Welcome. Thanks for being here. It's all Network Plus today. For those of you who are just joining in for the first time, this is our Network Plus study group. I'll ask you questions in this first hour, and you will respond online with the answers. I'll explain how to do all of that in a moment. There's a lot going on here. We've got next week is Security Plus study group. So the same time, same day, same bat channel next week. Let's come back. Taiwan is checking in. Hello, Taiwan. Thank you. It is almost tomorrow there, isn't it? Thanks for being here so late in the evening or the morning. Hello, Tennessee. That's how all those conference calls would always go. When you work for a big company, the managers always start the conference call with, hello, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. They always say that every time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. It never fails. They always do it. I don't know why they do it. They feel like they're compelled for some reason. There's no script. It's a natural thing. It's something in nature that requires that anyone at a director level or higher say that when they start a conference call. It's one of the conference call bingo things that you can just guarantee. That's your free spot right in the middle. When things are getting started, right there, got my free spot. Always. Hello, Tennessee. Indiana is here. Virginia. Is it better to pursue the Network Plus or the CCENT? Well, it's different. You're trying to compare two very, very different things. So I guess the answer is one that it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. Because the Network Plus and the CCENT are not comparable really at all. Those are two different certifications for two different purposes that are for two different goals and objectives. So we can break that down in the after show if you'd like more details on that. Hello, Richfield, PA. Pittsburgh is also here in PA. I'm assuming it's the PA Pittsburgh. New Jersey is here. Welcome. We've got got your A+ certification. Congratulations. Very nice. DC's checking in. Welcome. RVA's here. Raleigh. India is in the chat room. South Africa's here. Clearwater. There's the Florida people. We didn't blow away. We're still here. Nigeria, thanks for checking in again. Thanks for being here. Love it all over the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. There's so much to do. Guyana is here. Morocco is here. We're getting as many international viewers as we are domestic, it seems. Durham, North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina. Jamaica's checking in. Hope you folks are doing okay there in the Caribbean. It's kind of a windy season, isn't it? Salisbury, North Carolina, welcome. That becomes useful. Hello, Maryland, my Maryland. Yes, I'll say it every time. There's another Florida. Thanks for being here, Florida. As many of you know, we are headquartered here in Florida. Let me make sure I have my call-in information ready to go. Oh, I do. What happened there? How am I that organized? But there it is. It checks St. Albans, UK. Welcome. Romania, Indiana, Delaware. That's quite a mix. That's quite an eclectic mix of locations coming in. Thanks for being here. We'll do plenty of Q&A for Network Plus for there. There's the island of St. Croix. Welcome. We've got Tampa. Yeah, you're about 4 hours away from us here in North Florida. That's about right. Queens, New York's here. Savannah, welcome. Connecticut. There's California. West Coast checked in. I know it's early. Sorry about that. Bahamas is here. Another UK, welcome. We've got All Network Plus. I think I remember the questions. I have them right here. I sort of go through the questions and remember, oh yeah, I wrote that question. I remember that. I usually write these questions about a week ahead of time. Really about a week, about 6 days. So right after this one is done, I'll do the review. I'll post the podcast version. I'll get the replays posted. Usually try to get that done in the afternoon, right after that. And then I'm really planning to go to do next week's Security Plus right after that. So there's a lot going on for Security Plus. I've got some really interesting things to talk about for Security Plus and some new things to talk about next week on the live stream. So a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit of inside baseball for you there. William, your son got his A+. Congratulations. Largely due to my vids, largely due to his studies. So I just make the videos. Your son had to do the hard part. So congratulations. He's in Oakland. Fantastic. Let's turn this phone off so it doesn't make bunches of noises and make you think that it's your phone while we're doing this. It's kind of a problem when that happens. We got about 3 minutes till we get started. A little bit less than. A lot less than. We're almost to 2 minutes. And we will do Network Plus. So we'll have all of those things going. I've got the studio's really working out. This new video switchers, now I think we're in the zone. I've got a new streaming system. So we're doing 1080p now consistently for quite some time now. So I'm pretty happy with the streaming. We could technically do 4K streaming. There's just too much of a delay for things like this. Because this is very interactive. I ask you questions. You're going to give me answers. That kind of thing. Yeah, the chat's a little different now. For the last month or so, we've done the YouTube chat. So that's worked out pretty well. So I think that's okay to have that there. The main computer I have in front of me is a iMac Pro. This Mac has on it, it's a 2.3 gigahertz Xeon W with 128 gig of memory. So there you go. And a 16 gig Radeon Pro Vega 64 inside of it. So it's not bad graphics wise, but it does fine for the video editing. That's why it was purchased. That's why it has 128 gig of memory, is really for the video editing. Because now we do all the video in 4K. So this was all updated, I don't know, 6 months ago. New camera, new video switcher, new everything, because the entire infrastructure is now at 4K in here. That's the important part. I don't know if it'll play Fortnite. It does Eve pretty good. So Eve Online works fantastic on it. I have to boot into Windows, though, to make that happen. 30 seconds, we'll get this thing going. So at night, I have an hour or two. I'll reboot this thing into Windows so I can get a couple of hours in of some type of non-work process, and then it's booted back into Mac OS so I can get real work done. So not that you couldn't do real work in Windows, but I do my work in Mac OS, so I have to get back into Mac OS to do that. So it's kind of nice to have that done. So I am not a Fortnite person that requires someone to be able to have some type of reflex, and I don't. Speaking of reflexes, it's time to get started. So let's get the show on the proverbial road. Here we go, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2019 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is our 1-hour study group where I ask you questions online and you answer those questions online. We all get to follow along and see exactly how we answer those questions. These are all brand new questions that focus on the Network Plus certification. I'm James Messer. I'll be your host for this first hour. After this first hour is over, I turn it around. So that you ask me questions. So I'll open up phone lines. We'll take questions from the chat room. If you are watching this, I'm watching the YouTube chat, which is also the chat that is available on your screen. So you're more than welcome to ask questions in there as we go. There will be many other things to talk about as we go through this. But thank you for being here. This is one where we really couldn't do a live stream where I ask you questions if you weren't there to answer them. So nice to have that there. In the pre-show, I usually come on about 10 minutes beforehand. We were talking about locations of where people are. You're here from all over the world, really, and thank you for being here. This is a live stream we're able to do every month for Network Plus. We do, of course, have other study groups available throughout the month for A Plus and for Security Plus. So if you want to do Security Plus, come back next week, same time, same place. If you ever want to know what's going on, you can always go to the calendar that's on the website. Don't forget about the things that we do every day on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. All you have to do is type professormesser.com/ and the name of the social media thing you want to hopefully find me on. Now, unlike a lot of you, I don't spend a lot of time on the social media, but there are a few of them you'll find out there. Most of what is there you will always find at professormesser.com. So thank you for visiting the website, and thank you for checking out the Instagram and following us on YouTube. If you are trying to give some things back to what we do here, go ahead and subscribe to YouTube. That's something that does help us. So absolutely free and doesn't cost you a thing, and we really do appreciate it. I'm able to do this study group thanks to your ongoing support. I do have, of course, every minute of every one of my videos is available for you to watch for free online. There is no paywall. There's no registration wall. I don't even know who exactly is watching all of these videos. You're just able to access them online for free. Now, there is an offline version of this that you can purchase. I have a video offline version. I have an audio offline version. I have study materials available, and you're able to see more about these on my website. You can go to professormesser.com/getnet+ if you're interested in any of those. This study group is also available in a replay that you can watch on my website. So the video replay is available immediately afterwards. So that's something that does come in handy if you're trying to find the live stream and you miss it. You just want to know when it's going to be on. As soon as we finish the live stream, it takes a couple of minutes for YouTube to format this video, and then it's immediately available. There is an audio-only version of this available on a replay. You can find that by going to professormesser.com/podcast. And if you have a podcasting program that is able to automatically download these, have them in your mobile device. So the moment you hop in your car for the drive to work, you know it's going to be there. When you go to the gym, you know it's going to be there on your mobile device. You can listen in immediately and have all of those available. You can find that at professormesser.com/podcast. My A Plus, Network Plus, and Security Plus are all there as well. If you wait about a day afterwards, my marketing manager, Lori, goes through all of these videos, has to listen to this whole thing. I am so sorry, Lori. You have to listen to the replay of the whole thing. It's not that bad, is it? She makes it go a little bit faster, though. And she gets the timestamps of everything that we do, and she puts them into the YouTube video description. So if you would like to come back later and quickly find what you were looking for, or you'd like to go to an older version of this and hop very quickly from one question to the other, so easy to do. So this is something that we do very casually when we're live. Sometimes on the replay, you want to jump ahead. This is a great way to do it. Thank you, Lori, for having that available. You can go back to any of the archives and find that, I guess, for the last year or so. So it's nice to have those available as well. We're going to do all Network Plus today. So some of you were mentioning this earlier on. Network Plus is something that the current version is the N10007. This was a version released on March the 1st, 2018. And usually these are available for about 3 years. So you're not going to see another Network Plus version update 18, 19, 20, March of 2021. So if you are studying now, here we are in 2019. If you're studying for this Network Plus and all of your study materials say N10007, you have the right version and you have plenty of time to be able to study with this version. It's a 90-minute exam. You could get a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than that, but you won't get more than 90 questions. And there are 2 different kinds of questions that will be on this exam. You'll get multiple choice questions. We're going to do some of the multiple choice questions today, where you get a question, you answer A, B, C, or D. Those are pretty familiar to most of us. They're also on this exam performance-based questions. These performance-based questions are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be putting things into a particular order on the screen. It might be a drag and drop. There's all kinds of different things that might happen. So you will definitely want to have a look at that as we go through this in your studies for the exam, but also for today, because the first question that we will do after the rewind question will be a performance-based question. So stick around for that. Now, how can you participate? Well, here's how you can do it. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Pop open a new browser window, type that URL in at professormesser.com/QA. It will take you to a screen with a question waiting for you right now. You will see that question is there, and you'll be able to answer it on the screen. This is also available in an app form. If you'd like to have this on your mobile device, you can go to the Google Play Store, you can go to the Apple App Store, and you can download the Socrative student app. We use this service called Socrative to be able to answer these questions live and interactively. So feel free to have a look at that. We've got, if you do use the Socrative app, by the way, it does ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it right, or you won't be in the right room. There won't be a question waiting for you. And if you do all of those things correctly, there will be a question waiting for you. This is a question from last month, so we call it our study group rewind question. And the question asks, a system administrator is troubleshooting a copper Ethernet cable connection and has identified excessive FEXT. So which of the following would best describe this issue? And it's a multiple choice question, so there's options available to you. Is it extended time between frames? Is it a break in the cable along the run? Is it that the cable is wired with a 568A standard? Is it that you have an optical transceiver mismatch? Or is it excessive interference seen on the far side from the transmitter? 82% of you seem to think it's that last one, where there is excessive interference seen on the far side from the transmitter. Some of you were here last month. Some of you do remember this, although as I recall, a number of you got that one right last month as well. So this is one where you have to understand those different messages that can come from looking at a cable testing device, and that is absolutely one you'll run into. When you're answering these questions live and online, make sure you go to professormesser.com/QA. Please do not put the answer in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room. We want to be able to go through this. Well, we were dealing with this. Whenever you see XT, it's referring to crosstalk. And there's different kinds of crosstalk that you will find on a system. There is very commonly this crosstalk is identified using a time domain reflectometer, or a TDR. Near-end crosstalk is the interference that you get on the transmitting end, the end that is nearest to you, the near-end crosstalk. If you'd like to see what the crosstalk is once it gets all the way through the cable on the other side, that's the far end. So the far end crosstalk is the interference that's measured away from the transmitting device, which means that if you did answer E, that's the right answer. Excessive interference seen on the far side from the transmitter is indeed excessive far end crosstalk. Those are useful terms to know for the exam because they are on the exam objective. They're also extremely useful to use when you're in the field troubleshooting problems. You need to make sure that your OSI layer 1 is working the way you would expect. You get out your TDR, you look at some of these values, and you need to be able to interpret these values for near-end crosstalk and far-end crosstalk. So make sure you're familiar with those. There'll be a lot more of those statistics you need to find. It usually takes a while to become really accustomed to these time domain reflectometers. So spend a little bit of time and it will serve you well. Well, as I mentioned, we have a performance-based question for you to start off the study group. So, of course, I do have a performance-based question that we can start with. This is, did I make it a fill in the blank? I believe I did. In fact, I did not even give you matching options on this one. All this one does is ask a single question regarding protocols, and I seem to have put a build on the screen. So we're going to quickly build this screen out. There we go. The question asks, add a protocol name and a port number to this description. So I've given you 7 descriptions. I really made this one hard. 7 descriptions, and I want you to give me a protocol name and port number. When I say protocol name, I mean UDP or TCP. You don't have to give me what the actual protocol is, although that would kind of be a bonus if you could do that. You will put this into professormesser.com/QA. So again, don't put that in the chat room. That's not where we want it. We want you to fill in the blanks at professormesser.com/QA. So let's quickly go through these 7 different descriptions. Description A is transfer files over the network in the clear. What protocol and perhaps port numbers? I'll give you a little bit of a hint. There might be multiple port numbers on that first one to transfer files over the network in the clear. Description B is share the screen of a server across the network. Description C is print to a shared Windows printer. Description D is log in to an insecure console session. Description E, synchronize the time across multiple devices. Description F is convert www.professormesser.com to an IP address. Description G is gather performance statistics from a switch. Those are the 7 different options to have this here. That's quite a bit to go through. So let's step through them one more time. I'm noticing some of you are already putting in the answers. Some of you are even putting in the detailed answers with UDP TCP, with what the port number is, and what the actual protocol name is, which is really useful to have that there. So have a look at those and see if you can look at them. For those of you listening on the podcast, let's step through them one more time so you can have an idea in your mind which ones you'd like to focus on. A is transfer files over the network in the clear. B is share the screen of a server across the network. C is print to a shared Windows printer. D is log in to an insecure console session. E is synchronize the time across multiple devices. F is convert www.professormesser.com to an IP address. And the last one is gather performance statistics from a switch. That's a lot there to be able to go through. Maybe you're familiar with looking through some of these. So I think that's one where that might be useful to have that there. Have all of those different options. Maybe you know what those are. If you think you do, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and put your answer in there. I know this one's fill in the blank, and this one it's kind of a tough one to be able to have this here. One of the challenges you have when working through these problems on the performance-based part is sometimes there's no multiple choice or drag and drop to pull from, that you are going to have to know these things off the top of your head. So make sure you are familiar with those as you go through. I think that might help you a lot as you're going through this. So I'm giving you, this was hard because I give you no hints at all. There's really nothing to pull from. Sometimes there's a list and you kind of pull from the list and start filling in the blanks, kind of a drag and drop or a matching type question. But occasionally you will get one on the exam that doesn't give you any hints at all. And you're going to have to effectively fill in the blank for what this is. Or they might give you, another thing they do on the exam is they give you 5 descriptions, but they give you 10 different options, which means you're not going to fill in all of them. So that helps a little bit, but it still makes it difficult for everybody. Hopefully that can help you too as you go through this. Let's see how you did. We had 30 of you have answered this one so far. This is a tough one to get through all of these different things. Some of you got a few of them. A lot of you chose all of them. You selected and put in all of these different things. So let's go through and really break down what these 7 different descriptions are and what they are from. So let's start with the very first one, which was A, transfer files over the network in the clear. What you should have been looking for there is this is FTP. This is the file transfer protocol. FTP uses TCP port 20 and TCP port 21. So those are I mentioned earlier on, there could be multiples for that first one, and indeed there was. The second one, option B, is share the screen of a server across the network. That is the remote desktop protocol, RDP, and the TCP 3389 is the port and the protocol used for that application. Next is C, print to a shared Windows printer. Well, if we're printing to a printer, it's actually the same protocol you would use to transfer files inside of Windows. That's SMB, the server message block, and SMB for direct communication use TCP 445. D is log into an insecure console session. You should already think that that's Telnet. You should know immediately that's Telnet, and that uses TCP port 23. E is synchronize time across multiple devices. If you're synchronizing time, that is indeed the network time protocol, and that is a UDP protocol that communicates over port 123. An easy one to remember, that 123 if you're telling time. F is convert www.professormesser.com to an IP. That is a DNS query, and DNS queries communicate also over UDP using port 53. And lastly is G, gather performance statistics from a switch. That's the Simple Network Management Protocol, or SNMP, another UDP protocol that communicates over port 161. So those are your 7 different descriptions and the 7 different protocols and port numbers for each one. I will not go through all of them all over again. You're welcome. But you should know all of these port numbers and all of these protocols. Notice that I did not. I know I put a C on there. So everybody in the chat room, this is what happens when you call me out in the middle of a live stream. So now there's nothing you can do now. I'm so sorry, but now you're going to have to just kind of deal with it. There you go. I think everybody's better now. Everybody's great. This is where you start really getting into understanding how these questions are asked on the exam, is that they really do get rid of trivia questions. They're not asking you, what port number does SMB use? You will not get a question like that on your exam. You'll get a question like this that says, what port number would you use to print to a shared Windows printer? They want to know that you understand how things are working under the surface. How and why do these things operate? So that is what you should do, is be familiar with that process. That should help you as you're doing this. Does DNS use UDP all the time? Well, for most of your for all of your queries that you're doing for DNS, yes, it's always UDP. DNS does do TCP communication when doing things like zone transfers between DNS servers. So these large bulk transfers of data between DNS servers that are primarily used for synchronization. Those functions will use TCP. It's kind of rare to see a zone transfer in DNS occur. It's a very specific function. It's not something you commonly see at a workstation level, certainly. You almost always see UDP in all of your DNS studies, all your DNS packet captures, and that's why. It's very fast. It's very efficient. It's ask a question, get a response, and you're done. That's all you need across the network for DNS. And as, of course, we know, it works exceptionally well. You know, we always have this issue in our brains, I think, that UDP is somehow not as good as TCP, that for some reason it's incapable of handling the communication across the network. And then you think about it and you realize, well, I've never had a problem with DNS working. DNS works great. And that uses UDP every single time. So that's one of those situations where it's not really about whether a protocol is, we sometimes call these protocols reliable and unreliable. It's really talking about the communication between the two, not if they work or not. So that's how this works across the network too. You're probably not using UDP for streaming this video, by the way. You might be. YouTube uses a lot of different technologies for streaming video, and they may not be using UDP for what you are doing. In fact, most of the time you are not, because you don't need to. And it's not live to you. It's buffered to you, at least slightly. There's a couple seconds here where you're getting a buffer. But that does depend on the platform that you're on, the browser that you're using, and what YouTube is doing this week with their streaming technologies. You never quite know exactly what they're going to do until you do a packet capture, and maybe on your platform you are using UDP right now. Certainly possible. So there's your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully that's gotten you a little more familiar with how these port numbers are used. Let's jump into some performance-based questions, or excuse me, multiple choice questions. No more performance-based. Let's do some multiple choice today. I can't say that no more performance-based. We might have another one coming up. Here's our next question that asks, a family has installed IoT automation that can control door locks, lights, and garage doors. Which of the following technologies would commonly be used to communicate between these systems? Would it be Z-Wave, Bluetooth, NFC, IR, or RFID? Those are your 5 different actual real networking technologies you have to choose from. A family has installed IoT automation that can control door locks, lights, and garage doors. Which of the following technologies would commonly be used to communicate between these systems? Would it be Z-Wave, Bluetooth, NFC, IR, or RFID? Hopefully you know the answer. If you do know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can lock in your answer there. Please do not answer in the chat room. Don't give any hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend that we are sitting in the room with no resources available to us right now. And we're going to try to see if we know the answer to this. Now, if you don't know the answer to this and you are sitting in an actual exam room ready to take your exam and you get a question, you're just not sure of the answer, take a guess. They don't really tell what their exact grading methodology is for the exam, but what we are able to tell is they don't penalize you for a wrong answer. All they really do is give you points for a right answer. What we really mean by that is it doesn't hurt to guess. All it can do is help you. So always guess. Always leave an answer. Never submit your exam without answering every single question. So that's important to do that. If you want to answer this question, go to professormesser.com/QA. You can lock your answer in right there. See if you have. In fact, this question describes my house. For this, you have IoT controlling door locks, lights, garage doors, and more, and a lot more in my house with IoT. It's remarkable how huge that market has become. It is a $220+ billion market to have this here. That is a remarkable thing to have all of that there. So if you are somebody who is looking at putting some of this in your house, you're just like everybody else. It's a bigger market than computer gaming, just to give you an idea of how big the IoT market is. Let's see how we did with this one. 66% of you say Z-Wave. 16% of you say Bluetooth. 7% and 8%, kind of a tie for third, say NFC and RFID. And the last 3% said IR. Hardly anybody chose IR on that one. So I think 66% saying Z-Wave, that's a pretty good number, although the name of that sounds kind of funny. Z-Wave, what the heck is a Z-Wave? Well, Z-Wave is a technology used by IoT, the Internet of Things. It's inside of all of these little devices. It might be inside your light controller. It might be inside your garage door. It might be inside the door locks that you're using. And it allows these systems to take advantage of mesh networking, a zero configuration mesh networking on top of that. So as soon as you put in that door lock, it automatically checks around and realizes, hey, there's another Z-Wave device. What are you? Oh, you're a garage door? Fantastic. Oh, wait, I see another one over there. It's lights. I'm having a hard time talking to the light, though, so let me hop through the garage door to talk to the lights. So they're able to mesh themselves together, and all the devices are able to work within all of these 900 megahertz ranges here. This is one that is pretty impressive, how easy all of this works together. There are a number of different technologies that are surrounding the Internet of Things. There's Z-Wave and Zigbee are two of the ones that are really fighting it out right now. So we will see how this finally ends up. But Z-Wave is certainly the answer that you had available to you, and that is the right answer. If you answered A, Z-Wave, 66% of you got that one absolutely right. The other option, Bluetooth, 17% of you say Bluetooth. Not quite Bluetooth. Bluetooth is used for many different things on your mobile devices. It is not used for these devices on your home network. They just were not able, Bluetooth wasn't designed for the low power meshed capability with zero configuration. So it didn't really fit what we were trying to do with the Bluetooth side. NFC, another technology used on your phone, that near field communication. If you've ever used your watch or your phone to pay for something, that's using NFC. RFID is a technology that NFC is based on. RFID, commonly used for that RF identification, very much used for inventory and other capabilities as well. IR, infrared, we often have that in our remote controls, and you will find infrared on some mobile devices as well, but certainly not used for the Internet of Things devices, because infrared really requires a line of sight, and all the devices on your home are probably not able to see each other, and they're probably too far away for infrared to really work very well. Your only good answer here indeed was a Z-Wave. 66% of you got that one absolutely right. Let's do another multiple choice question. This question is really going to push your ideas of having this here. Let's see how you did with these. Your question asks, a security researcher needs a high-speed switching storage technology that can support speeds up to 200 gigabits per second with aggregation up to 12x. Which of the following would support these requirements? Would it be InfiniBand? Would it be broadband Ethernet? Would it be fiber channel? Would it be eSATA? Would it be iSCSI? A security researcher needs a high-speed switching storage technology that can support speeds up to 200 gigabits per second with aggregation up to 12 times. Which of the following would support these requirements? Is it InfiniBand, broadband Ethernet, fiber channel, eSATA, or iSCSI? If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what those happen to be. Comes kind of handy to be able to understand these technologies. And this one specifically is definitely in the exam objectives. So make sure you are so familiar with this when working through the exam objectives. That's one of those things that as you're looking through these questions, you're trying to understand a little better. You may find that other questions on your exam help you answer the questions here. So that's something that you might want to think about having available as well, because you need every bit that you can, every bit of help that you can get on the exam. And this would be a great way to get that help, is to understand more about why this question would be this answer. That's why a lot of people prefer going through the performance-based questions, skipping over performance-based questions, getting all the way through what you're doing, and then coming back and doing the performance-based question. So you sometimes will see that and having those things there. So definitely something to consider as you're going through the exam. If you get tripped up on one question, mark it, keep it going. Maybe another question is going to help you with the answer later on. You can come back to that. Let's see how we did with this one. Security researcher needs a high-speed switching storage technology that can support speeds up to 200 gigabits per second and then aggregate that 12 times. This is a very high-speed network, which would support these requirements. 52% say fiber channel. You got 25% that say InfiniBand. 15% say it's iSCSI. You've got 6% for eSATA and 3% for broadband Ethernet. Well, if you're a researcher, you're doing something that needs very, very, very high speeds to be able to have that, then you're probably going to want to do InfiniBand. Doesn't even sound like a real network, does it? It sounds kind of funny, but it's a real thing. It's InfiniBand. If you're doing fiber channel, but you need faster, you can do InfiniBand. Has both copper and fiber options for this. It's quite a type of networking, but the real key for InfiniBand are these speeds. It is incredibly fast. 200 gigabit per second speeds are common, and you can aggregate these links together. So you can get 4 times, 8 times, 12 times links on these incredibly fast throughput for InfiniBand. It is a remarkable technology, and if you're in research, you're doing something with scientific, or you're in a particular segment that needs an incredible amount of bandwidth, you're probably going to be hitting InfiniBand at some point, which means those of you that did answer A, InfiniBand, 26% of you chose InfiniBand. I think most of us, the 51% that chose Fiber Channel, that's what we've heard of. That's a name we know. InfiniBand, not one that you really know offhand for that. That's exactly what I thought, Daniel. You read it, you're like, I know broadband Ethernet isn't that fast. I know eSATA isn't that fast. I know iSCSI isn't that fast. But I know Fiber Channel. I've heard that term before. Let's go with that. I think it's a good guess. Not the right guess in this particular choice, but it's pretty close to this. Fiber Channel and InfiniBand have two very different use cases, so it's not that they're really fighting with each other or one is taking over. It's just you have to choose the right type of topology for the things that you are doing. Well, as you can imagine, as you're going through this exam, by the way, if you did answer A, InfiniBand, that is the correct answer. So as you go through this, you'll find there's a ton of information in this exam, the Intent 007. I have all of my videos available for you to watch. Of course, I recommend you go through every single one of them. Of course, get a good book, get plenty of Q&A, get plenty of hands-on, and of course, take some notes as you're going through these videos. Now, I realize with all of these videos available, you may not have time to go through these notes. You may not have the ability to go through all of these videos and take these notes. So I took these notes for you, and I made them into a book form, so everything would be available at a glance. These are my Network Plus course notes. You can find out information about these at professormesser.com/NPCN7. This is a PDF that has everything from all of my videos. It's 66 pages of information, and you can see page after page after page of the text, of the charts, of the information that you need from the Network Plus exam, the wireless details, the encryption information, the topology information, information on IP addresses, information on InfiniBand, and information on Fiber Channel. It's all in there. So this is one that also helps support the website. A lot of you watch the free videos and you'll sometimes send me an email and say, I want to give back to what you're doing. Can I send a donation? I don't take donations. I prefer for you to get something for your money. So this is a good way to help provide access to more and more videos, to help other people gain access to this content as well. So it's a great way to support the site. You can find out more about these Network Plus course notes at professormesser.com/NPCN7. And very quickly, I will also say there are physical versions of the course notes available. You can get the PDF version, or you can purchase this physical version. It's the same information that's in the digital file. It's just a physical version of the same course notes. It's a full color, perfect bound paperback book of these course notes. And if you purchase the physical version, I'll ship these to you, of course, and you'll get a digital version to download for free. So you get both if you get the physical version. Just another neat idea there. The physical version costs a little bit more because it's a printed product in color, but it's one that might help you. So feel free to be able to use these. The course notes might help you as well when you're finally getting ready to take that exam. This is something that might help you out as well. Found out more at professormesser.com/NPCN7. Let's do another question. Let's keep going with this. There's plenty, by the way, as we go through these different exam questions. Keep in mind that you are really trying to understand more about what you should expect on the exam. So I've tried to make these questions give you a same feel as what you would get for the exam. So let's see what our next question is going to be. This one is more of a trivia type question, kind of a separate set to go through and understand what these are. The question asks, what SSH-based protocol allows the copying of files between systems over the network? What SSH-based protocol allows the copying of files between systems over the network? Is it AFS, SFTP, TFTP, SMB, or FTPS? So that's all. Those are 5 acronyms. We now have to know what all these acronyms are. The Network Plus exam has a huge number of acronyms because we use acronyms all the time. and having all of these things there. So feel free to understand more about what you would see here. Think about these 5 different options. Your question is, what SSH-based protocol allows the copying of files between systems over the network? Is it AFS, SFTP, TFTP, SMB, or FTPS? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer right there. Make sure you're going to that professormesser.com/QA so we can see everybody putting in what they think the answer is. I'm not even going to look right now at what those are. Make sure you're familiar with all of these different protocols that you're faced with. Each one of those that's listed here for this answer are real things. Those are real protocols. I didn't make one up. It's just not a jumble of letters that I stuck together. Those are actual real things. So think about this one again. Go through AFS, SFTP, TFTP, SMB, and FTPS. So hopefully that's one you're familiar with as you go through that. Folks in the chat room, people seem to notice the pictures in the videos. The picture on this one is of Niagara Falls. You saw the bigger picture on the title screen. This one, there's the title screen. There's Niagara Falls. That's Niagara Falls from the Canadian side looking towards the American Falls there. And I have visited there. Mrs. Professor Messer has family in Canada. So that's one that does have that there. But the important part of this is all of my Network Plus videos have bridges in them. So that's the hint. That's my little theme for if you go through every single one of my Network Plus videos, you'll notice all of the title slides have a bridge in them because it's bridging, because it's networking. See? It's not like it's that big of a jump. I know. I didn't spend a lot of time. It's not very esoteric. It's really right there in your face. I get it. I'm a simple person. But it's a bridge, and I like bridges. So there it is. So that should at least give you a perspective of how deep I go. Not very. That's how we work. And as now some of my others did go a little deeper. A+ goes a little bit deeper, but not much. Security Plus in your face. There was a Microsoft course that was a lot deeper. Not a lot, but much a little deeper. That's more than just in your face anyway. Anyway, that's the idea. I do think about these things when I put them on the slides, though, just so you know what these are. Let's see how we did. What SSH-based protocol allows the copying of files between systems over the network? 81% of you say SFTP. That seems to be the big number there. FTPS came in at 14%, and then single digits for TFTP, SMB, and AFS, which all of these, by the way, copy files between systems over the network. Every single one of them copy files. The Apple file system, the trivial file transfer protocol, the server message block. And then we've got SFTP and FTPS that were sort of torn over if you're working on those. That's what you need to work through and have this here. I think that's one that I want to work through as well. Let's see the differences, though. The first one we'll look at is SFTP. This uses the SSH protocol to transfer files. So there you go. That is the one we were looking for, is the one that uses SSH. SSH was built to kind of replace Telnet and FTP. It was built to do both file transfers and console communication specifically. So that's one as you're going through all of this and trying to figure out, the SSH seems to do a lot of stuff. Yes, it does. It's exactly why it does all of these things. And you'll think about it, you have FTP at protocols, TCP protocol 20 and 21. You have Telnet at 23. Right in the middle is 22. And when the writer of SSH saw that, he did the paperwork in the standards committee to say, 22 is available. I've kind of written this thing to kind of take the place of these others. It'd be nice if my protocol was right in the middle of those. And sure enough, SSH is TCP 22. Maybe that will help you remember it as you go through this, your port numbers. So that's an actual story. That's a real thing that really did happen for this. There's other protocols to use for this, TFTP, for example. FTPS, which is not on this, FTPS is a completely different protocol. The S at the end, very similar to how HTTP has the S at the end when it's using SSL. FTPS at the end is FTP using SSL. In our particular question, we were asking about SSH, however. SSH, the S is at the beginning, and for SFTP, the S is at the beginning. I think most of you were there with this one. You were right on board. 80% of you did choose B, SFTP. That is the right answer. Well done with that one. You were spot on. Let's do another question. Well, first, let me tell you, before we get to this next question, that a lot of you like to watch these events to get a continuing education unit credit. I realize not a lot of you are collecting these days, but that's okay. Some of you still are. A lot of you are using the CertMaster CE to do your renewals these days. You don't have to collect CEUs anymore. But for those of you that do like to collect CEUs and pay your CEU fee, there is a way that you can do that. I will send you a digitally signed email that says you must have watched this. Here's what you have to do. Make sure you follow these instructions because the instructions are part of you being able to receive the email. What you want to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link right there at the top or the bottom. Click that Contact Us link. It will ask you for your name, your email address. Make sure those are correct because I'm sending this back to you in that email address. It asks you for a subject line, and if you could put that this is the September 2019 Network Plus Study Group, and you could even put on that same line the super secret code word of the month, which is SFTP. It is the super secret code word of the month, SFTP. You can also put that in the body of that as well. Just make sure it's very obvious to me because I go through these very quickly. And if you want to put anything else in there as well, I read through every single one of these. You're more than welcome to put any comments. I'm not able to always respond to all of these, but I do see everything that you send to me. I read through every single one of these. So thank you so much for your comments and your messages and your suggestions. I do read through, and sometimes I actually act on them. So sometimes you never know what's going to happen. One of those that might help you to have that there. So that will get you that continuing education unit email. It will be a webinar category of email that you would receive that can help you earn CEUs towards renewing your Network Plus or other CompTIA certifications. Let's do another question. Got one available to you right now. The question asks, which of these authentication methods use multi-factor authentication? Which of these authentication methods use multi-factor authentication? Answer A is password and a PIN. Answer B is USB token and an SMS code. Answer C, a swipe pattern and a smart card. D is fingerprint and an iris scan. Those are your 4 different options. If you think you know what the answer is, go to professormesser.com/QA. and you can answer it right there. Your 4 options. Which of these authentication methods use multi-factor authentication? Is it password and a PIN? Is it USB token and an SMS code? Is it swipe pattern and a smart card? Or is it fingerprint and an iris scan? Here we go. If you think you know the answers, go to professormesser.com/QA and have that there. Make sure you have that there to have those. Nice to have that capability as well. Make sure you're familiar with that. The multi-factor authentication, certainly something that's listed in the Network Plus certification. This will be useful to know for your Security Plus certification as well. Make sure to have that there. This one is one that might help you too. If you're ever trying to figure out some of these answers on the exam, this is one you do need to know. I don't think this one's very tricky. I think this one's very, very straightforward. There's no tricks here in any of the questions that I asked. There's no twists or turns. It's very straightforward. It's asking a very specific question and has very specific answers. You should be able to piece this one together very, very easily because I'm not hiding the answer on these. And you'll find on the exam, I think a lot of people come out of the exam, especially maybe they didn't study enough. They're very frustrated that a lot of the questions, say, are trick questions, and I don't find that at all. I think on the exam, the answers jump right out at you. If you know what it's asking for and you understand the underlying technologies, the questions tend to be very straightforward. So this is another one that I think is very straightforward. You should be able to piece this one through and figure out these multi-factor authentication options. Let's see how you did with the multi-factor authentication. Here are the questions again. Let's see how we did. We're a little torn. We're not quite sure. 39% say USB token and an SMS code. 31% of you say a swipe pattern and a smart card. 25% say a password and a PIN, and then only 6% say fingerprint and an iris scan. So these multi-factor authentications mean that as we're logging in, we're using more than one factor. It's not just a single factor authentication, it's multi-factor authentication. So we need to use 2 or more of these to have multi-factor authentication. Something you are, something you have, something you know, somewhere you are, or something you do. Those are 5 different options there from multi-factor authentication. So we need to look at each one of these multi-factor authentication, the authentications for these answers, to see which ones are multiples of these factors and not just a single type of factor. So let's see if we can break these down a little bit and see if we can understand them a little better. Let's start at the top where it says password and a PIN. So password is something you know. Nobody else knows. That's how you get the password. It's stuck in your brain. And a personal identification number, it's also something you know. So both of these are exactly the same type of authentication factor. Therefore, this is not multi-factor authentication. This is a single factor of authentication. We're not providing anything additional above and beyond what you know. It doesn't help very much to have that there. So make sure you're familiar with those. This is one also, as I go through this, that you need to kind of break down the answer as we go. Let's do another one. A USB token and an SMS code. A USB token and an SMS code. A USB token, of course, is a physical USB token generator, a pseudo-random number generator that's there. So you've also got an SMS code, which would be a phone that receives an SMS. So you've got now something you have, which is your token generator, and an SMS code that comes over on your phone, which is something you have. Both of those are something that you have, and in that particular case, it's a single factor of authentication. It's not technically multi-factor authentication because you have both of these things. That's I think you could probably force the issue of multi-factor on that one, but the actual terminology of multi-factor means you're using different types of those from the list that we have here. So that's another one we have to think about. If we look at, for instance, a fingerprint and an iris scan, you should be catching on to this already. A fingerprint is the fingerprint that you have. An iris scan, the iris of your eye, these are both something that you are. It's something physical for this. Both of those are a single factor. It's not multi-factor authentication. That leaves us with option C, a swipe pattern and a smart card. Swipe pattern, for those of you with Android, you know the swipe patterns that you would use to unlock your phone would be a particular pattern. That's something only you know. It's something you know. I guess you could say it's something you do, but I don't think it really qualifies as that. I think something you know is probably the correct qualification there. I go back and forth on that sometimes. So when I get a swipe pattern I know, and I don't even have to think about it anymore, it almost becomes muscle memory. I guess you could make that argument, but I think in this case, we'll put it under the category of something we know. We know what swipe pattern we should be using to unlock the phone, and there it goes. And the smart card is something that we have with us. It's a physical card that is used very often to plug into a smart card reader. That was the only option available that was multiple factors of authentication. So if you chose C, swipe pattern and a smart card, that is your correct answer. 32% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done with that, to have those things there. It becomes very useful to have the multi-factor, and hopefully you're doing some multi-factor authentication for everything that you do. I try to do as much multi-factor authentication as I can when I'm logging into the games that I play. We spend so much time on these games online. I make sure I have multi-factor authentication enabled. I have multi-factor authentication in a lot of the things that I work on. So make sure that you are familiar with this. The answer again, C, swipe pattern and a smart card. There's your multi-factor authentication with this one. So that is very useful to have that knowledge. Let's do another question for those. Let's break this down. The question asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting a wireless issue on a user's workstation and believes that the access point is too far away. Which of these would best describe this issue? Would it be attenuation, reflection, absorption, refraction, or jitter? Those are your 5 different options. Let's go through them one more time to see if I can pronounce them. They are attenuation, reflection, absorption, refraction, and jitter. Those are your 5 different. So now all 5 of these, by the way, actual things, real wireless issues to have this here. So go through this list and see if you know what this happens to be. If you do think you know what this answer happens to be, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to put that answer in as well. Make sure you know what these happen to be. This is where you would answer. Please don't put answers in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and you could do that as well. It becomes pretty useful to know these technologies too. All 5 of those technologies, pretty different technologies. And all 5 of those technologies are absolutely technologies you need to know for the Network Plus exam. They are all in the exam objectives. So if you're reading through these and you're thinking, I'm not quite sure what that means, make a note of it so that you can go back and understand more about what that particular term is referring to, because that could possibly pop up on the exam. You don't want to run into that scenario for that. Now, in this case, it's a very broad question, and you don't want to read too much into the question either. It's a very straightforward question. There should be a very straightforward answer here. And that's another thing that's important on the exam is don't read more into the question than what's absolutely there already. So deal with only what is listed in the question and only use what's listed to be able to answer the question, and you're going to do fine with this. Trust me. Let's see how you did with this one. In fact, the question asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting a wireless issue on a user's workstation and believes that the access point is too far away. Which of these best describe this issue? Well, 75% of you say it's attenuation is the right answer. 12% of you say it's absorption. 7% say it's refraction. 4% say there's jitter. And 3% say there is reflection. So what would be the right answer for an access point that's just too far away? Well, the correct term of that is attenuation. As you move farther away from a signal, the signals tend to degrade. This happens on a wired network. It also happens on a wireless network. The farther away you move away from the antenna, the weaker and weaker and weaker the signal. The term that describes this weakening of the signal the farther away you get is called attenuation. And you can use a Wi-Fi analyzer to really see how much of that signal you're still able to hear as you move farther and farther and farther away from the access point. Sometimes you can change the power on the access point and give it a little more power. Have it send a little bit of a stronger signal so it can reach some folks that are farther away. Some access points don't have this option. You're just not able to do that. You might also be able to fix it by putting a better antenna on the receiving side. If there's a larger antenna that you can get, it will collect more of the signal, and therefore it will be a little bit louder for the device that's listening in. So if you're not able to change the access point, maybe you could change the workstation. There used to be on many different wireless cards, there's an external antenna connection. And sometimes you can get an external antenna, put it on top of your monitor, on top of your desk, and get a little bit better signal coming through for those. And of course, just move closer. Well, that's the answer, isn't it? Not always possible to do that, I realize. But that will certainly improve the attenuation. You will have less attenuation the closer you get to the access point. Those might help you as you're troubleshooting this and trying to figure out the details of where this would be. So the 76% of you that said attenuation, absolutely correct. That is the right answer. Now, these other topics in here are issues you can run into with wireless networks. For example, 11% of you say absorption. Depending on the types of devices that are around and the type of signal that you're sending, 2.4 gigahertz, for instance, and 5 gigahertz can be absorbed by the devices around you. So there are situations where there might be a piece of furniture in the office, and that piece of furniture is absorbing the signal, and it's not able to bounce off and get into other parts of the office. That absorption can be a significant problem depending on the types of things that are in the way between you and that access point. We had 7% have said refraction. Refraction, if you've ever had a glass of water and you put a pencil in that glass of water and you notice the pencil looks broken, well, that's refraction. And you can see that happen across wireless distances, especially on the outside, external, outdoors, where you have a lot of humidity in the air. If it's raining, you have cold, heat, that changes the way the signal is able to move through the air. It may refract the signal as it's going through the air. Not something you have to worry too much about on the inside of an air-conditioned office, however. 3% of you said reflection, kind of the opposite of absorption. There are things in the office where the signal may bounce off of that, and that's called a reflection. That one kind of makes sense, I think. And the 3% say jitter. The jitter is the amount of time that occurs between frames on the network. If you have a particular application that requires constant communication, like voice over IP, for example, you want that jitter to be very small so that all of the frames are coming in at a very even rate, that you don't have large gaps between the frames. That is a large amount of jitter when you have a large amount of gap between the frames. Those are the things you have to worry about. All 5 of those you do have to know for your Network Plus exam. And the 76% of you were spot on with those. In this particular case, you'll notice that indeed the question didn't talk about where you were in the building. It didn't talk about what things might have been between you and the access point. It didn't describe that there was a couch or a window or a metal filing cabinet. It also didn't say that you were in a warehouse or that you were outside. It was wide open. It was a very generic question. And because there was nothing specific that was pointing you towards a reflection, a refraction, and absorption, you can automatically discard those. This one's very wide and open to have this here. So hopefully that's one you're familiar with when you're working through this. I do. I certainly am. Whenever I start looking through these, which of these things do I recognize and which of these things do I not? So make sure you're familiar with that to have that there. I think that can help. Whenever I start trying to figure out which one can't it be, that's almost as important as trying to understand which one it could be. Well, we've got time to sneak another one in. So let's go through another one of these. I've got a question for you. You wanted networking? I've got you networking. So here we go. This networking question asks, when 2 switches are connected to each other, the network creates a loop and devices are no longer able to communicate. Which of the following would prevent this loop from occurring? Would it be 802.1q? Would it be ACL? Would it be NAT? Would it be poisoning? Or would it be RSTP? Those are your 5 different options. 2 switches are connected to each other. The network creates a loop and devices are no longer able to communicate. Which of the following would prevent this loop from occurring? Would it be 802.1q, ACL, NAT, poisoning, or RSTP? Those are your 5 different options. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no answers that, no hints in the chat room either. We're going to pretend we're taking this exam straight up to have this here. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Let's see how you do with this one. This is one you'll certainly want to know about. 2 switches connected to each other. The network creates a loop. Devices are no longer able to communicate. What are you going to do? Let's see if you know what to do when that problem happens? How are you going to change your network? What are you going to implement on your network to be able to prevent that loop from occurring? This may save you a lot of headache for this particular problem. A lot of you are locking in your answers quickly. I have a feeling a lot of you already know what this one is. You've been doing your Network Plus work for long enough that you're very familiar with this particular answer. Let's see how we did. 61% say that it is answer E, RSTP. We have 19%, though, that say you use 802.1q. 12% say you use NAT. 9% say ACL. And 2% say poisoning. Those are the 5 answers. Now, 60% of you said RSTP. And I would say in this case, you're absolutely right. RSTP is the rapid spanning tree protocol, kind of the one we use these days. It is, we often say spanning tree protocol is what you would use for this. But whenever you're configuring spanning tree protocol on a modern switch, you're probably using rapid spanning tree protocol. It happens very quickly. That's because spanning tree protocol may take a while. When a device first connects to the network and has to evaluate, is a loop going to happen? Spanning tree protocol can take 30 to 50 seconds. So imagine connecting to the network, turning on your system, and you have no network connection for 30 to 50 seconds. You imagine the phone calls you would get when that occurs? Well, obviously, that doesn't work well for most folks. And that's why we came up with the 802.1w version, which has now been implemented into this standard for reverse, the RSTP, rapid spanning tree protocol, because the convergence on this, 6 seconds. 6 seconds. You plug in, boom, 6 seconds later, you've already determined if a loop is going to happen. Now, what's nice about the rapid spanning tree protocol is it is reverse compatible. It's backwards compatible with spanning tree protocol. So the older 802.1d spanning tree protocol, so you can mix and match. If you got one of these ancient devices in your network somewhere, everybody does. Everybody's got one of these things. It's in the back room. You can't move it. It's for some mission critical thing, and you've said it's just a switch. Let's just swap it out with the newest stuff. No, don't touch it. It runs our entire business. If anything happens to that, the entire business will crash. We will go bankrupt. You won't have a job if you touch that switch. Okay, the switch stays. But now we have to integrate with it somehow. Fortunately, the rapid version of spanning tree protocol is compatible with the older versions of spanning tree protocol. So that will help you a bit as you're trying to figure that out. That is the correct answer. If you answered E, RSTP, 61% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, 17% said you implement 802.1q. In the networking world, we just say you're using .1q to be able to communicate. That .1q is a way that you can trunk between switches. It does not prevent loops. It does not prevent outages from these loops. This is one that does come in handy. The 802.1q is a way that you could put up a single connection between a switch, but have multiple VLANs communicating through that. We call that a trunk. So that's the one that you would use if you need a trunk, but it doesn't help you if you need to prevent a loop. 12% of you said NAT, the network address translation. Well, network address translation is something that occurs at layer 3 with IP addresses. IP addressing and changing an IP address is very useful to communicate, for instance, the internet. Most of us are doing network address translation in our homes, for example, in our businesses. But network address translation doesn't help you prevent switches from creating a loop and creating outage. So NAT would not be the right answer for that one. An ACL, or what some people call an ACL, they say this incorrectly, and yet they keep doing it for some reason. ACL just sounds bad. ACLs, an ACL is whenever you want to create an access control list, probably the best way to say that, ACL. The access control list is a great way to configure filtering or to allow or prevent certain types of traffic from traversing a device, but that is not going to stop a loop. The loop is happening prior to sending any traffic over that connection. That is not going to help us in the case of a loop. And lastly, poisoning, especially route poisoning, is one very useful for preventing routing loops, but it doesn't help you very much for preventing a switch loop. Know your loops. Know the difference between a routing loop and know the difference, compare that to a switch loop. Two big different things, hugely different things between those two. Make sure you know what the differences are between a routing loop and a switch loop, and you know how to prevent a routing loop versus preventing a switch loop. That might help you as well. So that was our question dealing with loops for the month. Maybe that's one that can help you if you run into that situation with all of the loops. All of these questions, by the way, came directly from the exam objectives. Make sure you have the exam objectives and know exactly what these particular objectives are. This becomes useful when you are trying to figure out, what am I expected to know for the exam? This is what you are expected to know. It is listed. Everything in there is listed to be able to know exactly what's there. Make sure you know as you go through and trying to figure out the details of this. That'd be an important thing to know. Have this there. Make sure you have if you don't have these objectives, go to professormesser.com/objectives and make sure you can find those as well. They are extremely useful to have in your back pocket. We do one of these study groups every month. Of course, we have another hour or so of Q&A, except this is the part where you ask me questions. Stick around for that. But we do another one of these Q&A sessions. The next one will be in October the 16th. Come back for the Network Plus study group that we've got scheduled for October the 16th. If you're watching this on a replay, it's well after October the 16th, or you'd like to join us for an A Plus study group or Network Plus study group or a Security Plus study group, you can always go to the calendar on our website at professormesser.com/calendar. You'll know exactly when the next live event is going to be. Well, we've got more Q&A coming up. Stick around. If you want to join us on our social media sites, you can follow us at professormesser.com/Twitter. Make sure to push one of those buttons that say subscribe on professormesser.com/YouTube. Look at the pretty pictures on professormesser.com/Instagram. See the daily pop quizzes on professormesser.com/LinkedIn. Just type in professormesser.com/something, and you're bound to find me somewhere out there. Don't forget about the course notes available at professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes. And we, of course, check the calendar. You'll know exactly when the next one of these is going to be. Thanks for being here this time. Stick around for the next hour. We're going to do some more Q&A. And if you do have to leave, we will see you next time, though. I look forward to having another one of these next month. We'll see you back then. Thanks for joining us on the Network Plus Study Group. Bing, bing, bing. Let's see if I can get the study group going now with the phone line stuff. There it is. Hi, everybody. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's there's the Niagara Falls. That's not even the good part of the falls. It's not even the Canadian part of the falls. That's the dinky American side of the falls. How did that happen? How did we end up getting the smaller falls? What is the deal with that? Well, I guess that's how it works. Those Canadians, I love them. I married one, so I guess so. I guess they're nice. I tend to like them. They seem to be nice folks. I will say that. And the problem was when I married her, didn't know she was Canadian. There was a whole nother story there, isn't there? There's a whole it wasn't a Vegas thing. Wasn't like that. It's as it turns out, she didn't know either. Let's see if we can get some of these phone lines up and running. That should have piqued someone's interest, right? What happened there? Let's get these shows going. I will take questions from the chat room as well, so get your questions ready to go. I'll take questions from the chat room. I'll take questions from the phone lines. However you want to get the question to me, I will answer the question. We will figure it out as we go through this. Let me bring up my Skypey. Let me call in on my Skypey. I know it's not Skypey. I know. So let's type in some of these phone numbers into the thing and push the pound sign.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I think we know now how redundant that is, but that's okay. I can work with that. And it says,
welcome.
Oh, see, it all works. Love it when a plan comes together. Well, this means that you can ask questions in the chat room by going to professormesser.com/live. Also, if you're on the YouTube, you'll notice there's a chat there as well. It's the same chat. Chat is same place everywhere you go. You can also call in on the phone lines now. If you're in the continental U.S., it's a toll-free number, costs you nothing. You can dial 855-785-7545. West of the Rockies, 855-785-RJ45. We also take calls over Skype. So Skype is free for these toll-free numbers. You just put a +1 at the beginning, a +1 855-785-7545. You can call in with that as well. So you're welcome to do that. Yes, we did do the continuing education unit credit. You missed it. You weren't here for it. You'll have to go back and listen again, I guess. For those, we do have people calling in on those phone lines. Thanks for calling in. Quickly in the chat room, let's get that question, then we'll go to some of these calls. The question in the chat room, what type of jobs should one look for with the Network Plus certification? Usually it works the other way around, isn't it? The employers are the one offering the job, and they're setting Network Plus as being one of the minimums or what they are looking for in somebody who's filling these positions. Generally, it's somebody who's on a help desk. It's somebody maybe in a network operations center. And the positions you would certainly look for, that you would certainly expect to see as it relates to an A+, a Network Plus, perhaps even a Security Plus, are those entry-level positions into an organization. So one of my very first jobs was field sales. Wasn't field sales, it was field service. And that was certainly an entry-level position. I moved from there to an insurance company help desk. That was really an entry-level position. So the type of skills I needed to get those jobs were the type of skills you would expect to see from perhaps an A+, and perhaps a little bit of Network Plus in there as well. These days, there are these organizations that have very large network operations centers. Those operations centers will certainly want somebody with some networking knowledge at the entry level. Network Plus is commonly something you'll see. The best thing you can do is for your particular geography, go to the job posting sites that are popular in your area. The monster.coms, the dice.coms, the LinkedIn's that you might have in your particular part of the world, and see what people are asking for. Search for Network Plus and see what type of jobs come up. It's a little bit different depending on where you are in the world as well. So make sure to take that into account as you're trying to determine what jobs might be available. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to 951 in California. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, my name's Griselda. I'm calling from California.
Hi, Griselda. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, just wanted to thank you for your videos. I did purchase your course notes.
Oh, thank you.
Haven't finished reading them, but I do find it very useful. I did pass my CompTIA A+ certification watching your videos.
Oh, congratulations.
And I also bought this other book. I forgot the name of it right now.
So
anyways, I'm supposed to take my test October 1st for the Net Plus. So hopefully I'll do good. If not, I have the free retake, so I'm not too stressed about it.
I think that helps. Kind of take some of the stress level off whenever you have that retake that's there. It's something you can bundle in. For those of you that haven't seen that, you can purchase your voucher from CompTIA, and then you can purchase along with it for less money a retake. So it does take a little bit of the pressure off. Sorry, what's your question?
Oh, no problem. No, I just had a question. I know I wanted to compliment you. Your videos, you speak very, very well, very, very clearly. And I wasn't sure, how, I don't know if that's just something that you were able to do just with experience over time, or did you take some kind of class, with your ability to speak in public or in front of a screen, kind of something like that,
He speaks so well. He's so well spoken. Is this that's the Chris Rock bit? That's what you tell people who. So in my particular case, it probably is a little bit. It's probably a lot of the training that I went through. So prior to doing this full time, they often say that the people who can do and the people who can't teach. My situation, though, is that I did all of these things. I was a systems engineer. I did work in the networking field. I was a system administrator. I did work with operating systems. I did work as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall company. I've been in the field primarily in my career, it has been someone who has been either in a help desk position, but a lot of the time has been in a pre-sales systems engineer position. So I worked for companies that had a product. I had to understand technically everything about what that product did. It might have been a protocol analyzer. It might have been a firewall. It might have been an encryption method. It might have been antivirus. There's all these different companies that I worked for through the years. And in all of those, my job was to explain to other people why this product is any good. And if you sit in front of a lot of people and you're trying to demonstrate why a product is any good, telling them about the programming technology that was used to create the product doesn't help a lot of people. You really want to try to explain to people, oh, if you're concerned about malware, you're concerned about ransomware, this is a product that will block it, and let me show you how. Those are the higher level explanations. You almost have to be a liaison between what is technical and what is practical. And because of that, all of these companies I worked for in my 20, 30 plus year career, really, in technology, these companies would train you. They would send you to training on how to talk to people. There are classes like this. One very popular one that I took was from a company that called Decker. So I don't know if they're still around. Somebody can Google them and find some of those that are out there. But they taught you how to stand up in front of people and talk to them. Literally with cameras, they would record you. You would have to explain something for 3 minutes, and then they turn the video on, and in front of everybody in your class, they would break down why you were so bad at this. And it was really, that type of training is really good. They would teach you things like how to stand, which most people don't even think about this. You always see people taking pictures and they're holding their hands together in front of them, or they look awkward. And they explained that, why don't you just put your hands at your side and stand there? And we would do that, and they just stand there, don't say anything, just stand there with your arms at your side. And they said that feels weird, doesn't it? Feels like you should be doing something with your hands. But if you're standing in front of people, just put your hands down. And focus on what you're saying, rather than you feeling that you need to protect yourself by putting your arms in front of you. It's very interesting, the type of brain activities that go through there and how you have to break them out to do that. So yeah, I worked for companies that would invest a lot of time and a lot of effort teaching us how to talk to people. And I took a lot of that training to heart. And I didn't know at the time that this would be fantastic. I'd be able to use this because I was planning to create a video series and have it published to the world, and I'd be able to do this full time. YouTube didn't exist back then. So this is something that through the years, it's one of those skills that really helped a lot when it finally came time to create whatever this crazy experiment is. So there's a little bit of inside baseball for you there to have that there. I will also say that those classes taught me that what you say and how well people can hear you is often much more important than what people can see. So you'll notice, going back to early versions of my videos, this is the microphone I used for those early versions of videos. I spent a lot of time trying to get the audio just right, because I think the audio is so incredibly important. And I think that's probably a big even today, people perhaps don't understand how important that is for the videos that I watch. Spend a lot of time on these little tiny nuances, and it's surprising how important that becomes in the final product.
Awesome. Thank you. I definitely will take that to heart. One other question.
Sure.
I know I've been watching your videos, and sometimes they seem kind of fast. I didn't know if you offered like another set of courses on like as videos that it might be a little bit longer, like something on Udemy or something else, or is it just professormesser.com?
It's all on professormesser.com. I do not have anything that I offer on other video training sites, Udemy or anything else. It's not a model that fits very well with what I want to do. And my videos, I recognize they fit a particular niche and something that people are trying to do. It's difficult to make a video or a video series that could possibly cover everything that anyone would ever need to know to earn a certification. And that's because primarily because the video format is not one that lends itself to getting a lot of detail across in a short period of time. The reverse of this is obviously a book. A book has tons of detail in it. And you can read through a ton of that detail in a very short period of time and be able to, and for the most part, understand a lot of those pieces. I think a lot of where I focused, and this is the philosophy we've had going back to the very beginning, is that I want something that gives you exactly what you need to learn for the certification. I'm already assuming that you have the experience that's listed in the exam objectives. And I realize not everybody taking these certifications has that experience already. So some of the things I may talk about in the videos may be brand new to what people have ever heard. And I'm already expecting they already knew some of those things, but I can't make a series for everybody that would fit the right part. So I'm kind of hitting that middle part in the middle bump there where you've got 80% of the folks I think fit into what I'm trying to create. And I realize there are outliers there that having a longer or extended version of some of these topics would be fabulous. I could talk an hour today about every single one of the questions we went through, but I don't think anybody wants to sit through an 8-hour study group session, probably myself included. So it's one of those things where I have to draw a line somewhere. And right now I'm drawing the line kind of where it is. I tweak it from time to time when we move from one version to another. There's certain topics that I might tweak a little bit more than another because of the feedback that I get. And that's why I tell people, if you think there's a particular topic that we really should have gone through more, then let me know. Some of this also we don't know when we're creating the series. We have the exam objectives, but we really don't know what the exams are going to look like because they haven't been offered yet. So I have to think in the back of my mind, I have to get in the mind of CompTIA. What would they be asking about absorption, about attenuation, about reflection, and kind of come up with the idea of, I think this is what they would ask. It's not always right, but I have one shot at this and we get it in. And if it's something that's just horribly off from what's there, I always have the option for making more videos later. So there's always an option.
Right. No, your videos are fine. The problem is the problem is I haven't read the entire book from start to finish. I'm putting a Band-Aid on because I scheduled my test so soon. And so I bought your course notes and I watched your videos. But yeah, the problem is really just me. I need to sit down and read the whole book, but I only gave myself 3 months to study, and I haven't been very good at giving myself enough time to study. So that's all I was asking. But all of your resources are wonderful. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, you probably heard me say before, and I'm sure other people that are watching, I always say, get a good book, watch some videos, get plenty of Q&A, get as much hands-on as possible. Those should be the 4 things you're focusing on for your studies. 3 months is pretty good. And you've still got, half a month or so to go to lock in those. This may be the time you grab the exam objectives, start circling the things that you really need more help on, or start ranking them from 1 to 10, how much you might know them. And that way you can start bringing those numbers up. You know where to exactly focus on prior to going into the exam.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for answering my call, and thank you so much for helping all of us out there trying to get our certifications.
Thanks, Griselda. I appreciate it. Best of luck.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
That is a challenge, of course, is that there's so much in the Network Plus exam. It's an incredibly broad exam. And if you've never gotten into networking before, it's an exam of abbreviations. It's just one constant acronym after another. It's enormous. And unfortunately, a lot of people laugh at this like, well, there's no possible way they use all of these acronyms in actual use. Yes, there is. We absolutely use every one of those acronyms. And most of the time, we don't even remember what the words are associated with the acronyms. I had a couple of those today as we were going through. And that's why there's an ACL, which is Access Control List. We have to kind of reference, because we're so used to just saying, what's the ACL look like? Let's bring up the ACLs. Let's see what the ACLs are set to. We forget that there's a term behind it. But you still have to know those terms for your Network Plus certification. So that's one you will run into from time to time, is the challenges of understanding where you should go with this. So I feel you in that regard. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Jacksonville, North Carolina. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is John, and I'm in Delaware.
Delaware. Very good, John. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for you're awesome.
No,
yeah,
you
no
are.
Problem. I want to thank you for the videos and stuff.
Very welcome,
and
sir.
I just passed actually my 1002 and 1001.
Great.
A+ cert.
Congratulations.
So I'm moving forward to Net Plus.
Nice.
I was wondering. Thank you very much. I was wondering if you could go over binary and subnetting.
That would be a good one to
Because
do.
Those, well, I get stuck when it's. I get stuck when it's when you have to subnet different IP addresses. Like you have a range, and then you have to, get into the CIDR notations and all that stuff. That's kind of Greek to me, and I would like, to have it more understandable.
It is a little bit of a challenge. I think a lot of people, when it comes to subnetting, it is, first there's math involved. So already people are a little concerned that dealing with the math is a little bit of a problem. But then you also get into these scenarios where, and you've probably seen this online, there are different shortcuts to subnetting. Obviously, the subnetting itself is a binary process. There's binary math involved. There's the process of calculating this, breaking out all the addresses into all of the bits, and then doing the bitwise calculation on those and figuring out the details. But nobody really subnets that way. I do demonstrate that capability in my course. So if you were to look at the Network Plus course, I've kind of created a network addressing section that goes through this kind of in a logical way, or I try to, one that would go through this in a logical way, starting with the binary math, explaining IPv4 addressing, talking about classful subnetting, and we talk about how those work in a kind of a shortcut for those. That's a 11-minute video. We go into subnet masks, and then I jump to calculating IP subnets and hosts in a way that uses a little bit of a shortcut. There's different ways to do this, and you'll see online, if you were to Google the magic number method of subnetting, that's a good way to do it. There is the pie chart form of subnetting. That's another quick way to do it. On mine, of course, I have the 7-second subnetting, which is just kind of something I came up with when I had to sit down and take Cisco exams, because you have to subnet so quickly, and I make so many mistakes when I'm doing that so quickly, that it was a way that I could create and do subnetting in a very fast way that didn't involve any math, and I could quickly check my numbers. Eventually, you get to a point with subnetting where something clicks and you get it, and now you're able to go through the subnetting process and figure those out. Going through that is a little bit involved in a study group like this, and I haven't really spent a lot of time to do that, because it's a little ponderous to do that. I did create the video so that you could kind of go through this piece, but as I mentioned in my 7-second subnetting video, try to find the way that works for you. Maybe the magic number works better than the 7-second subnetting. Maybe the pie chart version works better than the magic number version for you. Or maybe like I did with my 7-second subnetting, maybe you come up with one that works for you. Effectively, they're all the same process. It's all the same thing. It's just a different approach on how you get there. This is one where for the Network Plus exam, another reason I don't spend a lot of time on this for Network Plus, and this might help you quite a bit, and others that are listening, you might not have any subnetting questions on your exam. Because if you look at the exam objectives, it's this tiny little section of a much larger domain That is part of many, many domains that you have to know for the exam. So the odds might be that you might get no subnetting questions on your exam. You might get one subnetting question on your exam. Maybe you would get two. I think if you got three, it would be well off the standard. That would be crazy if you got three subnetting questions. So for the Network Plus, and I've told this, probably not the best advice, but take it how it is given, is that if someone you can't get it, you tried to figure out subnetting, you've been fighting with it the whole time, you just aren't getting it, and you're spending an exceptional amount of time spinning your wheels over this, don't do it. Drop it. Forget about it. Don't even worry about it. If you get a subnetting question on the exam, take a guess, keep going. Because you could be spending a lot more time learning the other things that you would be asked about on the exam and instead of wasting all this time trying to figure out the subnetting. Now, once you get to a Cisco type exam, you get to doing these higher level industry exams from Juniper or Palo Alto Networks, or one of these where you really have to know subnetting quickly, then you're going to need some type of shortcut. But maybe you worry about the shortcut then. Maybe you worry about subnetting then. If it's something that's really giving you that much trouble, probably not the best advice is to skip it, but it's all about time. It's a time motion study for you. Are you spending the right time doing what you need to do? And that's the best advice I could give you is don't worry too much about that for Network Plus. Get as much of it in your brain as you can, and then keep going through the rest of the exam objectives will probably be your most effective way to follow that up, John.
No, absolutely. I agree totally, and that's great advice that you're giving me. The only reason why I want to know this is because you could be faced in real-time scenarios, a network admin.
Sure.
With situations like this. And, I don't want to be caught with my pants down, so to speak. I want to know the material, and I want to be able to test successfully. But I totally agree with you. If you don't know it, then keep going, because there's 90 questions, and don't get choked up on.
Right.
There's 89 to go. I get that.
Exactly. And I agree with you. You will need to know subnetting. That it's going to be an incredibly important thing. Go ahead.
When you were going back to your your video coursework, I'm actually at 1.3, so I'm one shy from where I'm supposed to be. The only reason I didn't get to see it today was because I tuned into the live Q&A, and I'm glad I did.
Okay, good. And I think when you get to that section 1.4,
I'm going to go over it, and hopefully that will help me with it.
I think it absolutely will. And I think once you get to the point with the or with whatever subnetting you do, you step through the binary part so you understand the fundamentals. You move into the classful subnetting so you understand how to do it at /8, /16, /24. I think it's just a small step to go beyond that. So I gave you a couple of options. I used some of the magic number stuff in one of the videos, and then we jumped to the 7-second. There might be something there that works for you too, and I think it will as you go through these. I think one of those is going to click for you once you get to that 1.4 and have that there. So I hope it does when you get to that point, and let us know if it's working or not, if that's something that is working for you. The subnetting section of my videos is ones that it has evolved over time. The first Network Plus series I did, I think, was the N10004. So 4, 5, 6, this is my fourth iteration of a subnetting course, and I'm trying to make the subnetting, or the Network Plus course, and I'm trying to make the subnetting better and better every time, and I'm trying to get the right mix there for the exam as well. Back to the phones. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Elizabeth Young. How are you this morning?
Hello. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
My question is that I'm a 57-year-old lady who's very interested in getting her A+ certification. And I was just wondering, just from your experiences, of course, witnessing the age age discrimination. At this late in life, would it be wise for you to even consider taking the certification?
It's a absolutely legitimate question to ask. It's one that I brought up before on in these study groups, because some of these people getting their certifications on my website are people that are right out of college. It's probably the most common place that people are when they are getting those entry-level certifications. But there are other people that are taking these courses that they're changing careers. They used to be a nurse, now they want to be in IT. They used to drive trucks. They used to be a lawyer, now they want to be in IT, which I think is great. I would say there's probably financially some very good reasons for doing that very thing. One of the things, though, and I've mentioned this before, is that it gets harder and harder to get a job, especially an entry-level job in some of these organizations, if you're past a certain age. I could not imagine myself going to an entry-level position now, or in some cases, even getting back into the jobs I used to have and competing against people who are younger, because age discrimination exists. It really is an issue for people that are a little older and trying to get into those types of careers. For those situations, you have to be able to use this wise set of knowledge that you have accumulated throughout the years. And this is the point where you're able to take advantage of people that you know and the relationships that you've built in either your industry or people that you know just socially. This is where knowing people from the gym, knowing people from church, knowing people from work, especially if you already work in an organization. Every organization has an IT department. It sometimes is very easy to stay in the same company and move because they already know you and they trust you, and the age discrimination isn't as big of a deal in that particular situation. So it's one of those where, yes, you're going to need the knowledge. Yes, you will need the certification. You have to prove that you can do the job. But I think you're going to have to go, and I recommend that you go a little above and beyond that to try to find those positions where somebody is already there that you know. I mentioned in another study group that I probably had about 15 jobs in IT throughout my career. Some of those jobs I moved within the same company. Some of those jobs I moved to a different company. But in every single one of those jobs except the first one, I knew someone who worked there. I didn't realize this until I went back and looked at every single one of those changes I made in my career. And the reason I got that job was, of course, a combination of things. It wasn't just what I knew, but they knew that if I knew someone else in the organization who could vouch for me, oh yeah, they're a good person. They come into work on time. They work very hard. They did this great thing at their other job. I've known them for years. It's always better to hire someone you know. Take advantage of that. It does help knowing somebody in those organizations. And if you haven't built out those relationships, now's the time to go to the Microsoft user groups in your area, the Cisco user groups in your area, the ISSC user groups in your area for security. Find those VMware user groups. Find those user groups in your area and meet those people. And those will be now people that you know when you go into those job interviews. It's something that we kind of have to overcome given the ages that we have become now, if that is something that we would like to do in the future. And hopefully that's something that you already have some feelers out there and you're able to take advantage of that.
Okay. Sounds good.
I appreciate your call. I wish you the best of luck.
Very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Such a challenge. It's another one of those things in society that we have to think about and get past and sort of make that not an issue. You know, you already know me. You already know that I'm an old person. Let's get that out of the way. Let me make that not an issue for you, and let's get this job done that you need to have done. And that doesn't matter if it's age or race or gender or any of those different things that could be a problem. You can make them not be a problem. You just have to find the right way to position yourself in order to make it about what you can accomplish rather than who you happen to be. Let's go back to the calls. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there, how are you?
Hi, thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Okay, my name is Dignity. I'm calling from South Africa.
Oh, well, thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Good, Professor. I just got a small question here. I don't know if it's small or big. When I was going through my the past exams, the past exams for N+, I saw something that had to do with the firewalls, the firewall rules and all that. I just wanted to find out if it's something you have covered in one of your books or of your video tutorials or something like that.
As someone who has been in the, I worked as a systems engineer for a firewall company for many, many years. So firewalls is certainly top of mind for me. And there is a set of videos I'm trying to remember in my Network Plus course, if it is the one that shows the firewall rules. I definitely have this in my Security Plus course because that is an important part of security, is to have those firewall rules. But let me see if I can find it very quickly on my screen so I can give you an actual video number of where that would be. In my Security Plus course, I show you a firewall rule set, and then we break down how that firewall rule set is able to provide access or to prevent access to what's on the network. I have that same information in my Network Plus course. It's in video section 1.3, and it is one that is video 16. It's called access control lists. So it doesn't say firewall on the video, but if you're looking for one that talks about firewall rule sets and gives an overview of that, it is section 1.3, and the name of the video is access control lists.
Oh, perfect, Professor. And just one more thing here. In class exam, is there repetition in questions or there is no repetition? In other words, is it very ideal for us to spend more time trying to go through the dumps, or it's just wise to start and understand the theory and the practical part of the networking and all that's involved in the course?
I think one of the best things you can do for study and trying to figure out what is expected on these exams is to use the exam objectives. I think I did this last month or the month before. In fact, I had said I wanted to create a version of this on my website that showed the differences and the deltas. But I'll show it on my screen now just so folks can see what I mean by this. So I'm going to put up the Network Plus exam objectives. If I can get out of this and do it the proper way on the screen. Here we go. So the Network Plus exam objectives are right here. Here they are. These are the ones I use to go through the N10007, and it lists out everything you would need to know for the exam. So for instance, explain the purposes and use of ports and protocols, and it goes through every single one of those. Now mine is color-coded because everything that was on the N10006 that also is on the N10007 appears in green. Anything that is new on the N10007 appears as yellow on my screen here. That was the one I was going to create on my website. But you can see it really breaks down quite nicely. In section 3.1, for example, given a scenario, use appropriate documentation and diagrams to manage the network. And you need to know diagram symbols, standard operating procedures / work instructions, the difference between a logical and physical diagram, the rack diagrams, the change management documentation. It goes into detail. There's some purple on this one as well, which means a little bit of it was in the N10006, but it needed a lot more detail in the N10007. So I recommend always that people go through these lists and get an understanding of what is expected on the exam from the exam objectives. If you know everything in the exam objectives, you're going to do fine on the exam.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much. I always try to take your advice because so far they've been so helpful. Thank you so much, Professor.
Best of luck. I appreciate you calling. That's such a an incredibly useful tool. I think you saw from the exam objectives, huge amounts of detail. I've had people say to me when they were ready to take their exam, they said, I heard you saying this over and over and over again, that look at the exam objectives, look at the exam objectives, look at the exam objectives. And I think they told me, I just thought they were 4 or 5 bullets, just an overview of the exam. They didn't realize that it was 20 plus pages of content they give you. CompTIA does this very differently than anyone else. Microsoft doesn't do this. Cisco doesn't do this. VMware doesn't do, nobody does this. So I understand why you would not be expecting this, but it's incredibly useful to have this information there. So hopefully it's one that that you're familiar with when you go through this. Make sure you know everything in the exam objectives. It becomes incredibly important. Let's see if we can go back to the phone calls. Let's go to the 207 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Tyler, I'm calling from Maine.
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I am looking to take the Network Plus. I took a little course, a mini course. I watched your videos. This is my first live study group. I'm calling because I'm totally blind, and I said, do you know anything about like the accessibility of the exam as far as how they best, like things like diagrams, how they can be adapted? Like I went through Pearson Vue, and the testing, the requests for accommodations and the procedures are just so opaque that it's very hard to get any sort of clear answer. You know, I've looked around I called Pearson. They told me to talk to the testing center. They told me to talk to Pearson again, called Pearson again, told me to call to CompTIA, called CompTIA. They transferred me back to Pearson because Pearson CompTIA makes the test. Pearson makes the sort of the regulations as far as what constitutes an accommodation. So do you know how they adapt for disabilities in the IT industry, like for someone who is blind, for example, adapting for a screen reader?
It's ironic because if you go to the CompTIA website and you look at the Pearson Vue website, they have extensive web pages that talk about here's the test accommodations, here's how we handle it, here's what you might be expected to see, here's the process that we go through. There's a button to click on that says here's how you request the test accommodations for your particular exam, and it's supposed to take you through all of that. Let's do it. I'm doing it online. For the people there, let's find CompTIA. They only handle a bazillion certification types. Let me see if I can find CompTIA in this list. First, I couldn't imagine if you had a problem with your site. I'm not even sure how you're supposed to negotiate this. I can barely do it, and I can basically see okay. So they give you the reasonable adjustments request system from the folks at Pearson Vue, and they give you a link to that where you can use their secure online system for requesting accommodations and submitting supporting documentation. Okay, so they apparently have a process for doing this. Hopefully their process is one that they are familiar enough with that they can go through this and do all of those things. They're asking you to provide supporting documentation. I can imagine the frustration for something that's supposed to be relatively straightforward. It seems like it should be straightforward, and being bounced around from one place to the other, to the other, to the other. Ultimately, by the way, CompTIA is the organization responsible for this. They simply pay Pearson Vue to do this properly. So if Pearson Vue is not doing this properly, you should be yelling at CompTIA because of that. CompTIA pays a lot of money to Pearson Vue. I'm assuming. I used to be involved with other jobs and working with other testing services, and we paid them a lot of money to do these tests. I can imagine it's a similar situation. So make sure that if something is not going as smoothly as it is supposed to be, make sure that CompTIA knows about it, because ultimately they're the ones paying for this. They're supposed to be getting a certain level of service from the folks at Pearson Vue. And if you're not getting that, they can yell at them for you. And that's what you should ask CompTIA to do. Please go yell. Don't ask me to call them. I'm done calling them. I'm done working with them. Now it's your responsibility to yell at them until this thing can get done so that I can take your exam. And don't be afraid to just keep escalating within CompTIA, because there are people in CompTIA that work at the upper levels of Pearson Vue, and they will figure it out. I have enough trust in the folks that I've talked to at CompTIA that they should be able to negotiate the nonsense and red tape and whatever inconsistencies there might be to be able to resolve this. I'm sorry you're having to go through that, but I know that the process is in place. You should be able to get through the process. I think at this point it may be just finding the right people to get you through the process.
Yes, because in theory that should.
Right.
I went through and I requested the accommodations for. I requested extra time, private testing room, and asked about screen reader support, because in addition to the multiple choice questions, obviously they're performance-based questions.
Right.
Like drag and drops, things like that, things that are not easily negotiable with screen readers. So I asked about that, and they said that, in addition to the diagrams and charts, pictures, whatever, and I got back saying that I got the private room and the extra time, but didn't get. They said screen reader support was unavailable, and so I called them and they said that their testing app isn't accessible to screen readers, and I also learned they're claiming that I'm the first blind person to have taken the test.
No.
That's what they actually said that to me. I don't know if I really buy that, but okay. So they don't seem to know. Like,
you're the only blind person ever.
Yeah, that's what they claim. I
in the world.
Something doesn't seem right. I mean, maybe, but it doesn't seem to add up.
It doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah. So I called, and they said, so I called the testing center. They said to go to CompTIA, and then I called someone else who was a specialist for teaching people who are blind and visually impaired, and they suggested making tactile graphics to 3D print. So I'm still waiting on that. If the testing center has those things, because I guess that's the thing you can do. You can make tactile representations of diagrams. But then there's this whole question now. But then we still have to get through Pearson Vue to see because part of when you think about a picture, describing the picture, there's always the sense of describer's bias and how that could influence the test.
Right.
So this whole thing, all these things with that, and no one seems to know exactly what to do. Like I went to the accommodations portal. I requested, I sent in the medical information, the proof of disability, and they just don't know. They don't seem to have. No one seems to have an answer, even with the accommodations portal.
I'm never one to get any type of lawyer involved. That's not the thing I like to do first, mostly because I have to deal with lawyers a lot, and it never seems to work out well for anybody. But there's got to be someone at CompTIA who knows what should be done. And CompTIA, as I mentioned, has a very detailed contract with Pearson Vue. CompTIA is the one that's got to force Pearson Vue to do this properly. And certainly they've got to have an exam set up that has already been predefined and set up for someone with a disability. Maybe that instead of performance-based questions, they ask you a couple more multiple choice. This isn't brain surgery. This is not something that would be difficult to get through. And that should be something relatively easy for a screen reader to go through and
what I heard from them, and this was from an agent at Pearson Vue, and I don't know, when you make a call, you don't always know exactly who you're talking.
Right.
They direct you to a line, and and they said that they can't alter the questions without going. They said they can't alter any questions. Which, when you think about certain things, especially when you're talking about screen readers or dealing with a scribe, someone who reads and dictates responses on a test, something like a command prompt, a virtual command prompt for that matter, that's a minefield of accessibility issues. I mean, I've had to deal with those in past year. Any kind of virtualization presents problems. Like
ultimately, the onus is on CompTIA to make this available to you. Forget the fact that Pearson Vue is involved. They're simply providing a service to CompTIA. They're not really the ones providing the service to you. And the folks that you would be calling in at a first line help desk, I'm sure have limited resources available to be able to handle this. You need to be able to call into someone higher up within CompTIA. You need to ask for somebody who handles, because somebody has to handle this within CompTIA that is not their first level folks. So I would not even go back to Pearson Vue anymore for this. They're more concerned about the mechanics of doing it. You're just trying to get the right type of exam to be able to sit down and get your certification. I would deal only with CompTIA. They're the ones that have to make this happen. You don't even have to throw around threats of ADA, but obviously that's got to be a concern, and they're certainly familiar with this. I don't have a relationship with CompTIA. I know some people that work there. They have used some of my videos for some of their things, but I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't know the internals of the company. I don't talk to them. And a lot of that's by design, or else I would jump in there with, oh, here's the person you need to talk to. I just don't have a name or a number. I'm just as unknowing of who that might be. But that's where I would go, is talk. It's got to be somebody at CompTIA. That's where I would focus my efforts.
Yeah, some companies have like like Microsoft has the disability answer desk.
Right.
Apple has the Apple accessibility hotline.
Right.
So maybe there's something, I guess I'd have to look further in. Obviously, CompTIA not being a customer-based thing, it's not as direct. But then probably I could see if there is something like the equivalent of a disability answer desk or an accessibility line, because I'd imagine that as part of branching out. I know CompTIA has expressed sort of an interest or desire, and a lot of people in the tech industry have over the past couple of years, is increased awareness of accessibility,
right?
Getting more people into the fray,
right?
So people with disabilities, the unique considerations and how to make things accessible and inclusive. I'd imagine that there's got to be someone somewhere who can who has either been through this process before or knows how it worked for someone who is completely blind.
That is what I'm thinking as well.
Someone who knows more than
the people that I've always worked with at CompTIA have been exceedingly nice. They're based out of Chicago. They are the Midwesterners of technology. So someone there, you just need to get past that first level and say, who handles this within CompTIA? Who is the person that handles this capability? We need to talk to them and get well above that fray. And I think they will be able to then grab it and go, and you can maybe avoid a lot of this other nonsense you've had to go through. But I would just stay with CompTIA. I would not bother with Pearson Vue until you can get someone at CompTIA who gets to yell at Pearson Vue to get this taken care of. They're the ones that need to be the front end to this.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know.
I wish you the best of luck, and let us know how that turns out. I'm very curious to know what they are going to be able to do to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. So if I learn more, if I end up getting the certification at some point, I'll definitely tune into another study group or call or something.
I'd love to send a note from the Contact Us link on the website. I can always send me an email directly from there, or call in back in on the study group. I'd love to know the end game of that.
Okay.
Best of luck.
I mean, especially if other people, are watching, who have a disability, who are in these study groups, that could be information that could spread around, because anything involving information about disabilities, even on the vast internet, is few and far between. And when you couple that with at the intersection of an industry certification,
right.
In IT,
right,
there's even less information. So
right.
it's so scarce. Yeah.
That's another reason. The more information we can get about this, and the more prepared that other people can be for this, will help. You're not the only one who's ever taken this exam again with vision issues. I've talked to other people before about this, so I think it's just a matter of finding the right folks. Let us know.
Will do.
Thanks for calling. That's frustrating. That's frustrating to me. I can only imagine how that would be frustrating to him. But it's one of those things that if you don't know, then you just don't know. There's no way to get to that point. There were some folks that contacted me, I don't know, a year or so ago that said, I have a screen reader. These are pieces of software that someone who is vision impaired can use, and it will read the screen information out. And they said, I'm going through your videos, but the structure of your video page doesn't work with the screen reader properly. There's special buttons you can push that will jump from one section to another in the screen reader. And if you went to my video page, it was just a mess. Didn't work at all with the screen reader. I was able to load a screen reader up, try it myself, and it just was horrible. But I was able to make just some very simple changes to the HTML that was on the back end. To all of us, it looks exactly like the same page it was a year ago. It's the same structure. Visually, it looked identical. But on the back end, I was able to put some special hooks that allowed you to very easily move from section to section by pushing the buttons on your screen reader and have it read the information properly. And as many of you know, all of my videos are closed captioned by humans. I put all of the transcripts on my website. So if somebody is, they don't know the language, English is not your first language, you have a problem with vision, you have a problem with hearing, you're able to get as much of this information as possible. So it frustrates me when somebody's not able to book the test and take the exam. That doesn't make sense to me in our modern age that we would have such restrictions in place when somebody just needs to take an exam. It's not brain surgery. We just need to take a multiple choice exam. You're killing me, Smalls. Jeez, that should be simple. And I feel that CompTIA will be able to solve this problem. I'm not negative about this at all. I think they will be able to fix it. We just need to find the right people to talk to make that happen. Back to the phone calls. Let's nope, not back to the phone calls. Those were terminated. Those were done. We lost that last caller. Sometimes happens. They drop off. That's okay. Back to the chat room then. We'll take some calls from the chat room. I'll give you guys a little bit of inside baseball on this one. Some folks are mentioning in the chat room, hey, the screen's kind of blurry. It's kind of fuzzy. I'm not seeing it right. Well, one of the things that you may want to check, there's a little cog wheel at the bottom of the video display where you're able to set the resolution of what's being shown on the screen. And very often the auto resolution may not work for you. It may be set at a very low resolution. I am sending 1080p video to YouTube. So you're able to watch this in what the industry calls full HD. So you're getting 1080p HD out of this, and you're able to get up to that level if your downloaded bandwidth can support it. The way this works behind the scenes is I have a streaming device. Let me see if I can bring up the streaming device. I think it is here's my streaming device. So this is, whoa, there's the streaming device. Better view of it probably is here. It's this, that's the screen that is showing sending the streaming information. It's actually a separate computer. It's in the other room, and that's the view of the screen there. So this is sending 1080p, just a single stream of 1080p to YouTube. That's it. YouTube grabs the stream, and then they put it through a machine that converts it into different formats. So you are seeing a re-rendered version of what I'm seeing to YouTube. It's still a very good re-rendered version. They have very good equipment that does this. And you're able to get that 1080p signal in just a second or two. I mean, it's very fast in what it does. I'm not even sure what they're doing, but it's very good. And it operates very, very quickly. They have upgraded this through the years, and that's why I send 1080p and not 4K. The 4K I can send to YouTube, and you can view this in 4K, but it puts a delay on the screen of about 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds. And when I'm asking a question, pick A, B, C, or D, and then I have to wait 20 seconds for you to even hear that. And so it's everything slows down by minutes at a time, as if this doesn't ponderously go along as it is. That's why it's stuck at 1080p, because I just can't send the 4K and have that delay. So I send that 1080p, and then you're seeing it in whatever format YouTube delivers it to you. On your mobile device, it might be sending you 720. On a low bandwidth utilization, you may be getting 360. So it just depends. And if it looks blurry, you may be able to click the cog wheel and manually set it for 1080 or 720, and it will look so much better. Yeah, sometimes the auto resolution does not work exactly the way one would hope. It's really a little bit of a challenge sometimes, but that is something that will help if you want to adjust that. They will be able to You will be able to manually set the things that the automation was not able to configure it. And on my side, I'm able to see how many people are streaming it at certain bandwidth. So I get the analytics from that show me the different rates, the different resolutions, how the performance of the stream is. Are you able to get the information? Were there any interruptions in the stream? There's a lot I can see from my side. So far, everything's been very good today. Sometimes it's not always very good, but today it's very good. So we never know. But right now, working the way we would expect. It's been a very good stream today. Haven't dropped anything. The stream statistics look very, very good. It's great that I have all these metrics and information available. If what I really need to do is take all of this crazy that I'm sitting in front of and package it up into a web page so people can really see, how do you make that work? How do all of these things work together to have that finally get to your side? Because there's an audio piece, there's a video piece, there's the streaming piece, there's adapters that I use connected on the back of this monitor that plug in as a separate external monitor that mirrors that screen so that you can then see that. So when I bring this up on the screen and you're able to see the results, it's really showing you the secondary display that is mirroring that screen, while at the same time having a third display off to the side that's showing me the chat. So that's how that's working for those of you that wanted to know, and maybe for those of you that did not want to know that. That is how that works. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into some of how this works behind the scenes. It seems to work pretty well now. We've got the system down, and we're running at 4K. And it's something that I was not expecting for it to work quite as easily as it is working. So I'm very happy. There were a number of stumbling blocks along the way. So you never learn unless something breaks, unless something goes wrong. And boy, I learned a lot with this one because there was a lot that broke along the way. Well, we're not broken now. Everything is fine. We could not be more than happier with the configuration we've got here, and that we're able to stream to you and you're able to watch this. We thank you for being here. Thanks for being here in this first hour and doing the Q&A. I love having the questions and posing them and seeing how you're able to answer them. And I like the questions that you send my way in the second hour. It gives me some insight into the things you're working on, some of the things you're going through. Sometimes we get stories. We don't know the end of the story yet. Hopefully we'll know that soon as well. Stick around for or check the calendar for next time. Maybe we'll get the end of that story in October. We'll have to find out. Come back a week from now. We're doing a Security Plus study group. That'd be a good one. So if you're working on Security Plus, we do another hour of Q&A. We turn around. You can ask questions again. We never know what the real results might be of that, but we love doing it. Thank you for being here this time, though. We're going to see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group.